hello there, and welcome to our celebratory reading on this beautiful 4th of July, where we celebrate independence, freedom, and the ability for each to do as they wish, with, of course, consideration of the respecting the freedoms of others. Now, to commemorate the freedom of the peoples and to really bring the red in the red, white, and blue, I'm going to be reading from the quotations of Mao Zedong and reflecting over the freedoms, the many freedoms that await people as we congregate today. Chapter 1, the Communist Party. The force of the core leading our cause forward is the Chinese Communist Party. The theoretical basis guiding our thinking is Marxism-Leninism. The opening address at the first session of the First National People's Congress of the People's Republic of China, September 15th, 1954. Apparently, the date was a Virgo. If there is to be revolution, there must be a revolutionary party. Without a revolutionary party, without a party built on the Marxist-Leninist revolutionary theory and in the Marxist-Leninist revolutionary style, it is impossible to lead the working class and the broad masses of the people in defeating imperialism and its running dogs. The revolutionary forces of the world unite, fight against imperialist aggression, quote-unquote, November of 1948, Selected Works, Volume 4, page 284. Without the efforts of the Chinese Communist Party, without the Chinese Communists as the mainstay of the Chinese people, China can never achieve independence and liberation, or industrialization and the modernization of her agriculture. Refer to, quote, title, On Coalition Government, April 24th, 1945, Selected Works, Volume 3, page 318. The Chinese Communist Party is the core of leadership of the whole Chinese people. Without this core, the cause of socialism cannot be victorious. Talk at the general reception for the delegates to the Third National Congress of the New Democratic Youth League of China, May 25th, 1957. A well-disciplined party armed with the theory of Marxism-Leninism, using the method of self-criticism and linked with the masses of the people, an army under the leadership of such a party, a united front of all revolutionary classes and all revolutionary groups, under the leadership of such party, these are the three main weapons with which we have defeated the enemy. Quote, On the People's Democratic Dictatorship, June 30th, 1949, Selected Works, Volume 4, page 422. We must have faith in the masses, and we must have faith in the party. These are two cardinal principles. If we doubt these principles, we shall accomplish nothing. On the Question of Agricultural Cooperation, July 31st, 1955, 3rd edition, page 7. Armed with Marxist-Leninist theory and ideology, the Communist Party of China has brought a new style of work to the Chinese people, a style of work which essentially entails integrating theory with practice, forging close links with the masses, and practicing self-criticism. Quote, On Coalition Government, April 24th, 1945, Selected Works, Volume 3, page 314. No political party can possibly lead a great revolutionary movement to victory unless it possesses revolutionary theory and a knowledge of history and has a profound grasp of the practical movement. Quote, title, The Role of the Chinese Communist Party in the National War, October 1938, Selected Works, Volume 2, page 208. As we used to say, the rectification movement is a widespread movement of Marxist education. Rectification means the whole party studying Marxism through criticism and self-criticism. We can certainly learn more about Marxism in the course of the rectification movement. Speech at the Chinese Communist Party's National Conference on Propaganda Work, March 12, 1957, First Pocket Edition, page 14. It is an arduous task to ensure a better life for the several hundred million people of China and to build our economically and culturally backward country into a prosperous and powerful one with a high level of culture. And it is precisely in order to be able to shoulder this task more competently and work better together with all non-party people who are actuated by high ideals and determined to institute reforms that we must conduct rectification movements both now and in the future, and constantly rid ourselves of whatever is wrong. Policy is the starting point of all the practical actions of a revolutionary party and manifests itself in the process and the end result of that party's actions. A revolutionary party is carrying out a policy whenever it takes any action. It is not carrying out a correct policy, it is carrying out a wrong policy. If it is not carrying out a given policy consciously, it is doing so blindly. What we call experience is the process and the end result of carrying out a policy. Only through the practice of the people, that is, through experience, can we verify whether a policy is correct or wrong, and determine to what extent it is correct or wrong. But people's practice, especially in the practice of a revolutionary party and the revolutionary masses, cannot but be bound with one policy or another. Therefore, before any action is taken, we must explain the policy, which we have formulated in the light of the given circumstances, to party members and to the masses. Otherwise, party members and the masses will depart from the guidance of our policy, act blindly, and carry out a wrong policy. On the Policy Concerning Industry and Commerce, February 27, 1948, Selected Works, Volume 4, page 204 to 205. Our party has laid down the general line and general policy of the Chinese Revolution, as well as various specific lines for work and specific policies. However, while many comrades remember our party's specific lines for work and specific policies, they often forget its general line and general policy. If we actually forget the party's general line and general policy, then we shall be blind, half-baked, muddle-headed revolutionaries. And when we carry out a specific line for work and a specific policy, we shall lose our bearings and vacillate now to the left and now to the right, and the work will suffer. Quote, speech at the conference of cadres in Shanxi, Suyuan Liberated Area, April 1st, 1948. Selected Works, Volume 4, page 238. Policy and tactics are the life of the party. Leading comrades at all levels must give them full attention and must never on any account be negligent. Title of Circular on the Situation, March 20th, 1948. Selected Works, Volume 4, page 220. Chapter 2. Classes and Class Struggle. Classes struggle, some classes triumph, others are eliminated, such as the history of civilization for thousands of years. To interpret history from this viewpoint is historical materialism. Standing in opposition to this viewpoint is historical idealism. In class society, everyone lives as a member of the particular class, and every kind of thinking, without exception, is stamped with the brand of a class. Changes in society are due chiefly to the development of the internal contradictions in society, that is, the contradiction between the productive forces and the relations of production, the contradiction between classes, and the contradiction between the old and the new. It is the development of these contradictions that pushes society forward and gives the impetus for the supersession of the old society by the new. The ruthless economic exploitation and political oppression of the peasants by the landlord class forced them into numerous uprisings against its rule. It was the class struggles of the peasants, the peasant uprisings and peasant wars that constituted the real motive force of historical development in Chinese feudal society. In the final analysis, national struggle is a matter of class struggle. Among the whites in the United States, it is only the reactionary ruling classes who oppress the black people. They can in no way represent the workers, farmers, revolutionary intellectuals, and other enlightened persons who comprise the overwhelming majority of the white people. It is up to us to organize the people. As for the reactionaries in China, it is up to us to organize the people to overthrow them. Everything reactionary is the same. If you don't hit it, it won't fall. This is also like sweeping the floor. As a rule, where the broom does not reach, the dust will not vanish of itself. The enemy will not perish of himself. Neither the Chinese reactionaries nor the aggressive forces of U.S. imperialism in China will step down from the stage of history of their own accord. A revolution is not a dinner party, or writing an essay, or painting a picture, or doing embroidery. It cannot be so refined, so leisurely and gentle, so tempered, kind, courteous, restrained, and magnanimous. A revolution is an insurrection, an act of violence by which one class overthrows another. Chiang Kai-shek always tries to wrest every ounce of power and every ounce of gain from the people. And we? Our policy is to give him tit for tat and to fight for every inch of land. We act after his fashion. He always tries to impose war on the people, one sword in his left hand and another in his right. We take up swords too, following his example. As Chiang Kai-shek is now sharpening his swords, we must sharpen ours too. Who are our enemies? Who are our friends? This is a question of the first importance for the revolution. The basic reason why all previous revolutionary struggles in China achieved so little was their failure to unite with real friends in order to attack real enemies. A revolutionary party is the guide of the masses, and no revolution ever succeeds when the revolutionary party leads them astray. To ensure that we will definitely achieve success in our revolution and will not lead the masses astray, we must pay attention to uniting with our real friends in order to attack our real enemies. To distinguish real friends from real enemies, we must make a general analysis of the economic status of the various classes in Chinese society and of their respective attitudes towards the revolution. Our enemies are all those in league with imperialism, the warlords, the bureaucrats, the comprador class, the big landlord class, and the reactionary section of the intelligentsia attached to them. The leading force in our revolution is the industrial proletariat. Our closest friends are the entire semi-proletariat and petty bourgeoisie. As for the vacillating middle bourgeoisie, their right wing may become our enemy and their left wing may become our friend, but we must constantly be on guard and not let them create confusion within our ranks. Whoever sides with the revolutionary people is a revolutionary. Whoever sides with imperialism, feudalism, and bureaucratic capitalism is a counter-revolutionary. Whoever sides with the revolutionary people in words only but acts otherwise is a revolutionary in speech. Whoever sides with the revolutionary people in deed as well as in word is a revolutionary in the full sense. I hold that it is bad as far as we are concerned if a person, a political party, an army, or a school is not attacked by the enemy, for in that case it would definitely mean that we have sunk to the level of the enemy. It is good if we are attacked by the enemy, since it proves that we have drawn a clear line of demarcation between the enemy and ourselves. It is still better if the enemy attacks us wildly and paints us as utterly black and without a single virtue. It demonstrates that we have not only drawn a clear line of demarcation between the enemy and ourselves, but achieved a great deal in our work. We should support whatever the enemy opposes and oppose whatever the enemy supports. Our stand is that of the proletariat and of the masses. For members of the Communist Party, this means keeping to the stand of the party, keeping to party spirit and party policy. After the enemies with guns have been wiped out, there will still be enemies without guns. They are bound to struggle desperately against us, and we must never regard these enemies lightly. If we do not now raise and understand the problem in this way, we shall commit the gravest mistakes. The imperialists and domestic reactionaries will certainly not take their defeat lying down, and they will struggle to the last ditch. After there is peace and order throughout the country, they will still engage in sabotage and create disturbances in various ways, and will try every day and every minute to stage a comeback. This is inevitable, and beyond all doubt, and under no circumstances must we relax our vigilance. In China, although a main socialist transformation has been completed with respect to the system of ownership, and although the large-scale and turbulent class struggles of the masses characteristic of the previous revolutionary periods have in the main come to an end, there are still remnants of the overthrown landlord and comprador classes. There is still a bourgeoisie, and the remolding of the petty bourgeoisie has only just started. The class struggle is by no means over. The class struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, the class struggle between the different political forces, and the class struggle in the ideological field between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie will continue to be long and torturous, and at times will even become very acute. The proletariat seeks to transform the world according to its own world outlook, and so does the bourgeoisie. In this respect, the question of which will win out, socialism or capitalism, is still not really settled. It will take a fairly long period of time to decide the issue in the ideological struggle between socialism and capitalism in our country. The reason is that the influence of the bourgeoisie and of the intellectuals who come from the old society will remain in our country for a long time to come, and so will their class ideology. If this is not sufficiently understood, or is not understood at all, the gravest mistakes will be made, and the necessity of waging the struggle in the ideological field will be ignored. In our country, bourgeois and petty bourgeois ideology, anti-Marxist ideology, will continue to exist for a long time. Basically, the socialist system has been established in our country. We have won the basic victory in transforming the ownership of the means of production, but we have not yet won complete victory on the political and ideological fronts. In the ideological field, the question of who will win in the struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie has not been really settled yet. We still have to wage a protracted struggle against bourgeois and petty bourgeois ideology. It is not wrong to understand this and to give up ideological struggle. All erroneous ideas, all poisonous weed, all ghosts and monsters must be subjected to criticism. In no circumstance should they be allowed to spread unchecked. However, the criticism should be fully reasoned, analytical, and convincing, and not rough, bureaucratic, metaphysical, or dogmatic. Both dogmatism and revisionism run counter to Marxism. Marxism must certainly advance. It must develop along with the development of practice and cannot stand still. It would become lifeless if it remains stagnant and stereotyped. However, the basic principles of Marxism must never be violated, or otherwise mistakes will be made. It is dogmatism to approach Marxism from a metaphysical point of view and to regard it as something rigid. It is revisionism to negate the basic principles of Marxism and to negate its universal truth. Revisionism is one of the form of bourgeois ideology. The revisionists deny the differences between socialism and capitalism, between the dictatorship of the proletariat and the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. What they advocate is in fact not the socialist line, but the capitalist line. In present circumstances, revisionism is more pernicious than dogmatism. One of our current important tasks on the ideological front is to unfold criticism of revisionism. Revisionism, or right opportunism, is a bourgeois trend of thought that is even more dangerous than dogmatism. The revisionists, the right opportunists, pay lip service to Marxism. They too attack dogmatism, but what they are really attacking is the quintessence of Marxism. They oppose or distort materialism and dialectics, oppose or try to weaken the People's Democratic Dictatorship and the leading role of the Chinese Communist Party, and oppose or try to weaken socialist transformation and socialist construction. Amendment. It said Communist Party, not Chinese Communist Party. After the basic victory of the socialist revolution in our country, there are still a number of people who vainly hope to restore the capitalist system and fight the working class on every front, including the ideological one, and their right-hand men in the struggle are revisionists. Now, we begin Chapter 3, Socialism and Communism. Communism is at once a complete system of proletarian ideology and a new social system. It is different from any other ideological and social system and is the most complete, progressive, revolutionary, and rational system in human history. The ideological and social system of feudalism has a place only in the Museum of History. The ideological and social system of capitalism has also become a museum piece in one part of the world, in the Soviet Union, while in other countries it resembles a dying person who is sinking fast like the sun setting behind the western hills, and will soon be relegated to the museum. The communist ideology and social system alone is full of youth vitality, sweeping the world with the momentum of an avalanche and the force of thunderbolt. The socialist system will eventually replace the capitalist system. This is an objective law independent of man's will. However much the reactionaries try to hold back the wheel of history, sooner or later revolution will take place and will inevitably triumph. We communists never conceal our political views. Definitely and beyond all doubt, our future of maximum program is to carry China forward to socialism and communism. Both the name of our party and our Marxist world outlook unequivocally point to the supreme ideal of the future, a future of incomparable brightness and splendor. Taken as a whole, the Chinese revolutionary movement led by the Communist Party embraces the two-stage, i.e., the democratic and the socialist revolutions, which are two essentially different revolutionary processes, and the second process can be carried through only after the first has been completed. The democratic revolution is the necessary preparation for the socialist revolution, and the socialist revolution is the inevitable sequel to the democratic revolution. The ultimate aim for which all communists strive is to bring about a socialist and communist society. Socialist revolution aims at liberating the productive forces. The changeover from individual to socialist collective ownership in agriculture and handicrafts, and from capitalist to socialist ownership in private industry and commerce is bound to bring about a tremendous liberation of the productive forces. Thus, the social conditions are being created for a tremendous expansion of industrial and agricultural production. We are now carrying out a revolution not only in the social system, the change from private to public ownership, but also in technology, the change from handicraft to large-scale modern machine production. And the two revolutions are interconnected. In agriculture, with conditions as they are in our country, cooperation must precede the use of big machinery. In capitalist countries, agriculture develops in a capitalist way. Therefore, we must on no account regard industry and agriculture as socialist industrialization and the socialist transformation of agriculture as two separate and isolated things. And on no account must we emphasize the one and downplay the other. The new social system has only just been established and requires time for its consolidation. It must not be assumed that the new system can be completely consolidated the moment it is established, for that is impossible. It has to be consolidated step by step. To achieve its ultimate consolidation, it is necessary not only to bring about the socialist industrialization of the country and preserve in the socialist revolution on the economic front, but to carry on constant and arduous socialist revolutionary struggles and socialist education on the political and ideological fronts. Moreover, various contributory international factors are required. In China, the struggle to consolidate the socialist system, the struggle to decide whether socialism or capitalism will prevail, will still take a long historical period. But we should all realize that the new system of socialization socialism will unquestionably be consolidated. We can now assuredly build a socialist state with modern industry, modern agriculture, and modern science and culture. The number of intellectuals who are hostile to our state is very small. They do not like our state, i.e. the dictatorship of the proletariat, and yearn for the society. Whenever there is an opportunity, they will stir up trouble and attempt to overthrow the Communist Party and restore the old China. As between the proletarian and the bourgeois roads, as between the socialist and the capitalist roads, these people stubbornly choose to follow the latter. In fact, this road is impossible, and in fact, therefore, they are ready to capitulate to imperialism, feudalism, and bureaucratic capitalism. Such people are to be found in political circles and in industrial and commercial, and cultural and educational, scientific and technological and religious circles, and they are extremely reactionary. The serious problem is the education of the peasantry. The peasant economy is scattered, and the socialization of agriculture, judging by the Soviet Union's experience, will require a long time and painstaking work. Without socialization of agriculture, there can be no complete consolidated socialism. We must have faith first that the peasant masses are ready to advance step by step along the road of socialism under the leadership of the party, and second, that the party is capable of leading the peasants along this road. These 2 points are the essence of the matter, the main current. The leading bodies and the cooperatives must establish the dominant position of the poor peasants and the new lower middle peasants in these bodies, with the old lower middle peasants and the upper middle peasants, whether old or new, as the supplementary force. Only thus can unity between the poor and middle peasants be attained, the cooperatives be consolidated, production be expanded, and the socialist transformation of the entire countryside be correctly accomplished in accordance with the party's policy. Otherwise, unity between the middle and poor peasants cannot be attained, the cooperatives cannot be consolidated, production cannot be expanded, and the socialist transformation of the entire countryside cannot be achieved. It is essential to unite with the middle peasants, and it is wrong not to do so. But on whom must the working class and the Communist Party rely in the countryside in order to unite with the middle peasants and realize the socialist transformation of the entire countryside? Surely on none other than the poor peasants. That was the case when the struggle against the landlords was being waged and land reform was being carried out. And that is the case today when the struggle against the rich peasants and other capitalist elements is being waged to achieve the socialist transformation of agriculture. In both these revolutionary periods, the middle peasants wavered in the initial stages. It is only after they clearly see the general trend of events and the approaching triumph of the revolution that the middle peasants will come in on the side of the revolution. The poor peasants must work on the middle peasants and win them over so that the revolution will broaden from day to day until final victory. There is a serious tendency towards capitalism among the well-to-do peasants. This tendency will become rampant if we in the slightest way neglect political work among the peasants during the cooperative movement and for a very long period after. The agricultural cooperative movement has been a severe ideological and political struggle from the very beginning. No cooperative can be established without going through such a struggle. Before a brand new social system can be built on the site of the old, the site must be swept clean. Invariably, remnants of old ideas reflecting the old system remain in people's minds for a long time, and they do not easily give way. After a cooperative is established, it must go through many more struggles before it can be consolidated. Even then, the moment it relaxes its efforts, it may collapse. The spontaneous forces of capitalism have been steadily growing in the countryside in recent years, with new rich peasants springing up everywhere and many well-to-do middle peasants striving to become rich peasants. On the other hand, many poor peasants are still living in poverty for lack of sufficient means of production, with some in debt and others selling or renting out their land. If this tendency goes unchecked, the polarization of the countryside will inevitably be aggravated day by day. Those peasants who lose their land and those who remain in poverty will complain that we are doing nothing to save them from ruin or to help them overcome their difficulties. Nor will the well-to-do middle peasants who are heading in the capitalist direction be pleased with us, for we shall never be able to satisfy their demands unless we intend to take the capitalist road. Can the worker-peasant alliance continue to stand firm in these circumstances? Obviously not. There is no solution to this problem except on a new basis, and that means to bring about step by step the socialist transformation of the whole of agriculture simultaneously with the gradual realization of socialist industrialization and the socialist transformation of handicrafts and capitalist industry and commerce. In other words, it means to carry out cooperation and eliminate the rich peasant economy and the individual economy in the countryside so that all the rural people will become increasingly well off together. We maintain that this is the only way to consolidate the worker-peasant alliance. By overall planning, we mean planning which takes into consideration the interests of the 600 million people of our country. In drawing up plans, handling affairs, or thinking over problems, we must proceed from the fact that China has a population of 600 million people, and we must never forget this fact. In addition to the leadership of the party, a decisive factor is our population of 600 million. More people mean a greater ferment of ideas, more enthusiasm, and more energy. Never before have the masses of the people been so inspired, so militant, and so daring at present. Apart from their other characteristics, the outstanding thing about China's 600 million people is that they are poor and blank. This may seem a bad thing, but in reality, it is a good thing. Poverty gives rise to the desire for change, the desire for action, the desire for revolution. On a blank sheet of paper, free from any mark, the freshest and most beautiful characters can be written, and the freshest and most beautiful pictures can be painted. After the countrywide victory of the Chinese Revolution and the socialist solution of the land problem, two basic contradictions will still exist in China. The first is internal, that is the contradiction between the working class and the bourgeoisie. The second is external, that is the contradiction between China and the imperialist countries. Consequently, after the victory of the People's Democratic Revolution, the state power of the People's Republic under the leadership of the working class must not be weakened, but must be strengthened. Don't you want to abolish state power? Yes, we do, but not right now. We cannot do it yet. Why? Because imperialism still exists, because domestic reaction still exists, because classes still exist in our country. Our present task is to strengthen the people's state apparatus, mainly the people's army, the people's police, and the people's courts. In order to consolidate national defense and protect the people's interests, our state is a people's democratic dictatorship led by the working class and based on the worker-peasant alliance. What is this dictatorship for? Its first function is to suppress the reactionary classes and elements and those exploiters in our country who resist the socialist revolution, to suppress those who try to wreck our socialist construction, or in other words, to resolve the internal contradiction between ourselves and the enemy. For instance, to arrest, try, and sentence certain counter-revolutionaries, and to deprive landlords and bureaucratic capitalists of their right to vote and their freedom of speech for a specified period of time. All this comes within the scope of dictatorship, the people's dictatorship. To maintain public order and safeguard the interests of the people, it is likewise necessary to exercise dictatorship over embezzlers, swindlers, arsonists, murderers, criminal gangs, and other scoundrels who seriously disrupt public order. The second function of this dictatorship is to protect our country from subversion and possible aggression by external enemies. In that event, it is the task of this dictatorship to resolve the external contradiction between ourselves and the enemy. The aim of this dictatorship is to protect all people so that they can devote themselves to peaceful labor and build China into a socialist country with a modern industry, agriculture, science, and culture. The People's Democratic Dictatorship needs the leadership of the working class, for it is only the working class that is the most far-sighted, most selfless, and most thoroughly revolutionary. The entire history of the revolutionary proves that without the leadership of the working class, revolution fails, and that with the leadership of the working class, revolution triumphs. The People's Democratic Dictatorship is based on the alliance of the working class, the peasantry, and the urban petty bourgeoisie, and mainly on the alliance of the workers and the peasants, because these two classes comprise 80 to 90% of China's population. These two classes are the main forces in overthrowing imperialism and the Kuomintang reactionaries. The transition from new democracy to socialism also depends mainly upon their alliance. Class struggle, the struggle for production, and scientific experiment are the three great revolutionary movements for building a mighty socialist country. These movements are a sure guarantee that communists will be free from bureaucracy and immune against revisionism and dogmatism and will forever remain invincible. They are a reliable guarantee that the proletariat will be able to unite with the broad working masses and realize a democratic dictatorship. If in the absence of these movements, the landlords, rich peasants, counter-revolutionaries, and bad elements and monsters were all allowed to crawl out, while our cadres were to shut their eyes to all this, and in many cases fail even to differentiate between the enemy and ourselves, but were to collaborate with the enemy and were corrupted, divided, and demoralized by him. If our cadres were thus pulled out, or the enemy were able to sneak in, and if many of our workers, peasants, and intellectuals were left defenseless against both the soft and the hard tactics of the enemy, then it would not take long, perhaps only several years or a decade, or several decades at most, before a counter-revolutionary restoration on a national scale inevitably occurred. The Marxist-Leninist Party would undoubtedly become a revolutionist party or a fascist party, and the whole of China would change its color. The People's Democratic Dictatorship uses two methods. Towards the enemy, it uses the method of dictatorship, that is, for as long a period of time as necessary, it does not let them take part in political activities and compels them to obey the law of the people's government and to engage in labor and through labor transform themselves into new men. Towards the people, on the contrary, it uses the method not of compulsion, but of democracy. That is, it must necessarily let them take part in political activities and does not compel them to do this or that, but uses the method of democracy in educating and persuading them. Under the leadership of the Communist Party, the Chinese people are carrying out a vigorous rectification movement in order to bring about the rapid development of socialism in China on a firmer basis. It is a movement for carrying out a nationwide debate which is both guided and free, a debate in the city and the countryside on such questions as the socialist road versus the capitalist road, the basic system of the state and its major policies, the working style of the party and the government functionaries, and the question of the welfare of the people, a debate which is conducted by the setting forth facts and reasoning things out so as to correctly to resolve those actual contradictions among the people which demand immediate solution. This is a socialist movement for the self-education and self-remolding of the people. Most arduous tasks lie ahead of us in the great work of construction. Although there are over 10 million members in our party, they still constitute a very small minority of the country's population. In government departments and public organizations and enterprises, much work has to be done by non-party people. It is impossible to get this work well done unless we are good at relying on the masses and cooperating with non-party people, while continuing to strengthen the unity of the whole party. We must also continue to strengthen the unity of all our nationalities, democratic classes, democratic parties, and people's organizations, and to consolidate and expand People's Democratic United Front, and we must conscientiously get rid of every unhealthy manifestation and any link in our work that is detrimental to the unity between the party and the people. That ends our 3-chapter read of quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong. Happy 4th of July!